We're going to shift gears a little bit, talk about the real estate market, in particular here in New York. The vacancy rate for New York City's most expensive rentals plunging to 3.4% last year. Tim, that's the lowest in almost 3 decades.
All right, here's some more numbers for you. So we're talking about rental units costing more than $2,400 a month. Availability fell from about 13% back in 2021. That's according to the latest New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey. It reflects, Carol, a broader housing shortage in the Big Apple not seen going all the way back to the 1960s.
Yeah, so let's get to it. Let's get to the interview at this hour on the New York City real estate market, an important one and a closely watched one. With us is Lisa Lippman, licensed associate real estate broker at Brown Harris Stevens, joining us on Zoom in New York City. Lisa, good to have you here with Tim and me. What are you seeing in terms of availability when it comes to the housing supply here in New York City? What are you seeing in terms of demand for buyers who are looking for properties?
So we're seeing increased demand. Since about mid-December, I'm seeing a lot more people coming back to the market to purchase. We definitely had a lull from last spring, summer through the fall. It was quiet. And in the middle of December, sort of out of the blue, things started picking up. Hard to know exactly why. Often after a period of lull, we get busy again for obvious reasons. People need to move. People die, they get married. They have children, they get divorced. So things started picking up in mid-December. And I feel like this January and early February have been busier than the average early year. Usually our spring market starts more in March or April, but it started earlier this year.
Lisa, how closely is your business tied to the equity market and what we see in the bond market when it comes to rates and the 10-year and mortgage rates? That is, if we started to see markets move higher in November and December, is it fair to say that people would come off the sidelines and say, okay, wait a second, I feel wealthier now. I'm ready to make a big purchase. And at the same time, I'm also seeing mortgage rates come down slightly from what we saw over the past few months.
Absolutely. My market is definitely tied to those factors. Having said that, we have a lot of wealthy cash buyers in New York, which has continued to fuel our market. And the buyers that purchased in the fall were by and large cash buyers at every price point, from 1 million all the way up to 100 million. And even the uptick that started in mid-December that's continuing now, we still have a lot of cash buyers, although I'm starting to see people who will finance creeping back into the market.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess, when we hear something like this, I'm always curious, Lisa, in terms of perspective. So like what you're seeing today in terms of the real estate cycle, how it compares to probably a lot of cycles you've seen. Is it a typical one, in terms of the amount of people buying by cash? Is it make sense, maybe the amount of people you're seeing, starting to maybe tap into some loans? I mean, give us some perspective, because you've been in the industry for a while, so you've seen a lot.
Yes. I've been in the industry for 25 years, and I worked through 9/11 and post 9/11 and the financial crisis, and then obviously, the latest big depression, recession. The difference now is that there are a lot more cash buyers than I've seen in the past. And, since I've started doing this, interest rates have come up and gone down. But this most recent rise in interest rate was the largest percentage rise. And that really pulled a lot of people back, freaked a lot of people out. I've been doing this long enough to know that, even now the interest rates aren't really historically that high. But in relation to what they had been, it freaked people out. But what we learned about the real estate market now is that there is so much wealth in New York that has been created in the last few years with the stock market, that there's a lot of cash buy. There's a lot of cash out there, and there are a lot of cash buyers. Now, the important thing about cash buyers is they don't overpay. They expect to get a good deal because they're paying cash.
Okay, so if somebody's a seller out there and they get an all-cash offer that's not at their price point, what's the next step here in terms of countering in a realistic way, taking into account that this thing could close quickly and not necessarily be dragged on by the financing process?
Well, I always encourage sellers to look at reasonable offers carefully, and especially cash offers. If something's financing contingent, it's never as interesting. A cash offer is always interesting. And, something that we learned in the last 10 years, when the market hasn't been as gangbusters as it might have been at different times. You know, we had this really crazy market in 2005, 2006. We had a mini crazy market from 2014 to 16. But at other times when things weren't like that, any offer you get, especially cash, should be looked at seriously, and you should play ball with that person.
Hey, are all the buyers American?
Most of them are. I'm seeing about 80% domestic buyers, 20% are foreign money, but it's not where it used to come from. We see a lot more South American money. We see some European money. And then we see some money coming from Asia, but places like Singapore, Taiwan, Korea, different than we used to see.
So in other words, not seeing China.
Correct.
What about Russia? Are you seeing Russia?
We see no Russian money. I haven't seen any Russian money in several years.
You know, it's funny, New York City, you know, we always talk about location, right? When you talk about anything in terms of the real estate market, New York City has a lot of different markets in the residential space, uptown, downtown, east, west. So walk us through it. What are the properties that people are most interested in right now, or where in New York City?
All right, well, downtown's always popular. West Village is always popular. Tribeca, especially prime Tribeca, meaning west of Church Street, is always super popular. Soho, very popular. You know, the 57th Street corridor, Midtown, tends to be less popular, except for the period of time where we saw lots of Chinese and Russian buyers buying there. Not to say that people don't buy there, but less popular. And then, of course, we have the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side. On the Park is always the most popular. And then beyond that, what's really been the most popular for several years is anything that's in really beautiful condition, move-in condition. People are very wary of doing renovation. It started before COVID, but certainly during COVID and since COVID, the cost of doing renovations in New York City is very, very high. And to get somebody to buy something that needs a lot of work, you really have to be priced very, very attractively. Otherwise, people just don't buy properties that need work.
What do you have on your radar, just in the last 30 seconds that we have, of perhaps the biggest shift that you can expect in the next few months as we get into that spring real estate season?
I think that it's going to get more competitive for buyers. Buyers have gotten used to, in the last 6 months, being able to sort of drag their feet, making offers, take a long time making a deal, expecting to be the only buyers. I think they will see more competition. So I think that'll be a change. But what I also want to warn sellers is, sellers are always very slow to react to a softening market, and they're often too quick to react to a market that they see as getting better. So what will slow down our market again is if sellers start raising their prices. That there is a danger in that.
All right, interesting take on that. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much. Lisa Lippman, she is licensed associate real estate broker at Brown Harris Stevens, joining us on Zoom from New York City. Hey,